loyalty in all we do. Con and Horde, our hearts so true. Legends live, we carve our name. Golden Horde will stake our claim. On the rising spirits soar. Golden Horde forevermore. Temujin, we heed your call. Greatest Khan who leads us all.
Greetings, comrades. On the cusp of returning to Temujin's story after too long of a hiatus, I wanted to take some time to refresh ourselves on the tactics and organization of the Horde. The Golden Horde, as I'm sure many of you know, is the Kenshi faction I created for our playthrough of the game. The Golden Horde obviously takes massive inspiration from the Mongol Horde. Temujin, in case you're wondering, is the supposed birth name of Genghis Khan, which is a title, the Great Khan, not a name. The Golden Horde represents my best attempt to bring the tactics and style of the Mongol Horde to the world of Kenshi. Beyond that though, the Horde also takes inspiration from Caesar's Legion from New Vegas, as I have always loved the idea of trying to recreate an ancient culture in a post-apocalyptic world. The Horde is my best attempt to do just that for Kenshi. So consider this video to be part guide and part refresher as we go into the details, tactics, and weapons of the Horde. The Horde itself is organized into 5 major classes of soldiers, and each of these classes of soldiers have their own equipment, tactics, and type of missions that they usually embark on. So as we go through all of these various classes, we're going to talk about their tactics a little bit, and then kind of try and bring it all together with some kind of big summarization at the end. So let's start off with the bread and butter, the workhorse of the Golden Horde, which is the Light Corps. The Light Corps is made up of, well, the light soldiers, and these represent my best attempt to bring to life the Mongol horse archer in Kenshi, which is quite a task considering the game has no cavalry and no vehicles. The light soldiers are ranged focus soldiers with melee as their secondary choice. The light soldier focuses on speed and range, making dexterity the main attribute for this class, and a high athletic skill is an absolute must. Thankfully, athletics is one of the easiest skills to build up in the game. When it comes to building the light soldier, certain races are highly preferred and others are not exactly ideal. Humans can be any of the classes in the Horde. They are jack of all trades, but Scorchlanders in particular make excellent light soldiers with their bonus experience gains in dexterity and athletics. When it comes to Hivers though, both the Prince and Drone make amazing soldiers for the Light Corps. Given that both naturally run faster than other races, their natural speed makes them ideal for the role, as they are as close to cavalry as we can get in the game. In addition to their speed, both the Prince and the Drone receive bonuses to dexterity and athletics. Both battle-capable drones and princes are automatically assigned to the Light Corps, given their natural talents. Czechs, on the other hand, are never assigned to the Light Corps, as their talents are for other parts of the Horde, which we shall cover later. Skeletons, like humans, can also fit into the Light Corps with ease, as they have a certain amount of flexibility. Be warned, however, that they are much slower than Hivers, and naturally have trouble keeping up. And now that you have a group of recruits chosen for the Light Corps, how do you arm and equip them? Well, their gear is thought out to enhance their natural abilities. First, let's go over the weapons. The mainstay of the Light Trooper is their Ranger crossbow. Simple and efficient. It may not be the best crossbow in the game, but it is the easiest to mass produce, and this single-shot crossbow can deliver bolts of death at considerable distances. When trained and paired up with a Hiver, they can run circles around any humanoid enemy in the game, and most non-humanoid ones. This is where the spirit of the Mongol cavalry is really housed. Light Troopers can cause massive pain, all the while keeping out of harm's way. A handful of light troops can mow down blocks of enemies several times their number, with some good micro and enough ammo. For the light trooper, if you want, you can outfit them with other crossbows. I did some experiments with the toothpick crossbow, but its short range and the fact that it used other bolts just added to logistical headaches. You can also equip them with MK2s as they will fire regular bolts, and they are superior to the Rangers. However, they are more resource intensive to produce, so I ended up sticking to the Ranger. When it comes to melee combat, light soldiers are not to be underestimated. While their bow is their primary weapon, any light soldier in the Horde must train extensively in melee combat, and for the light trooper, their standard issue melee weapon is a katana. When we move on to the armor of the light soldier, you'll see that it's, well, light. This is because many types of heavy armor will impact dexterity, which is the main skill of light troopers. It impacts crossbow reload speed and katana efficiency. Because dexterity is the main stat of the light troopers, it makes the katana a great choice as their melee weapon, as it too scales off dexterity. Plus, just having dozens of soldiers wielding katanas charging at you is terrifying, no matter where you are or what you're doing. There have been many times when light soldiers are out of ammo and need to draw their katanas just to mow down enemies in a choreographic dance of death. When it comes to the armor of the light trooper, it is all once again designed to synergize with their stats and combat roles. Thus, the armor of the light soldier can't weigh them down too much or hurt their athletic or dexterity stats. Starting from the ground up, we have Drifter's boots at the standard issue footwear. Nothing exciting about these boots, just rugged and reliable and offer some protection without hindering any major stats. For leg wear, light troopers sport Drifter pants, effectively for the same reason as the boots. Moving up to the shirt, light troops are issued a simple leather turtleneck. This shirt is actually a key piece of armor, as it adds way more protection than you might think, while not impacting any base stats at all. Ensure to craft the turtleneck variant, as it comes with arm coverage and protection that the shirt variant does not. Now we get to the heart of the armor, the Ninja Rags body armor. These rags are excellent because not only do they make your soldiers look badass, they are classified as light armor rather than clothing. But not only that, the Ninja Rags add multipliers to virtually all the important stats for light troopers. Let's go over them. You get a 1.1 times stat multiplier for both dexterity and crossbows. So any soldier which dons the rags will instantly receive a boost to their stats. They also give you a 1.2 multiplier to your dodge stats and a 1.3 times multiplier to your stealth. Not the most important stat for your troops, but good to have regardless. Then the icing on top of all of that cake is the +4 melee weapons and martial arts skills. Melee weapons being more important for us in this case, having that extra added little bite is certainly helpful. Ultimately, the Ninja Rags will help your light troops enhance the stats which are already important to them, while still providing some coverage and protection to them. Lastly, we don the simple rattan hat to top things off. Mostly just to give some head protection, the rattan hat also provides a nice +4 boost to perception, the stat which governs your ranged accuracy. So a fully kitted light soldier receives toe-to-toe protection, an extra 4 points in melee and perception stats, and that's not even mentioning the important stat multipliers they get to dexterity and crossbows. While the light soldiers are the workhorse of the Horde, they do have weaknesses. The one being heavily armored opponents, as nothing they wield will be able to crack that armor. Sometimes you just need to have a little more staying power, and this is where our next class comes in, the Heavy Corps. The heavies themselves are not actually inspired by the Mongols. No, think of our heavies as more akin to Roman legionnaires, but without the shield. These heavy infantry are meant to take and hold ground while going toe-to-toe with the enemy's best forces. The heavies are melee-focused units with ranged capabilities. When it comes to choosing the right heavy, there are also some considerations you might want to have in the back of your mind. Recall that drones and princes make very poor heavies. Your soldier drones, however, will make excellent heavy soldiers, as they have stats which meld very well with their gear and mission. Beyond that though, there aren't any other races you really need to exclude from the Heavy Corps, but Sheks in particular, you always want to place in the Heavy Corps, as they make the best heavy soldiers out there. Now, let's go over their weapons, shall we? The Heavy swaps out the Katana and Ranger for a machete and spring bat. Think of these like the Roman legionaries Gladius and Pila, respectively. The spring bat itself is a crude invention in the world of Kenshi, a basic crossbow platform that is designed to fire massive harpoons at oncoming enemies. The heavies will use their spring bats in a way Roman legionaries will use their pila. As the enemy approaches, the heavies will load their spring bats and fire. These harpoons will rip through the enemy's armor and limbs with ease, softening them up before it is time to actually take the first blow. After hitting them a few times with their spring bat, it is time for the heavy to draw their machete and deal death face to face. While there is nothing special about these machetes, they certainly get the job done at close combat. And not only that, they scale off of strength, which in comparison to dexterity is the main attribute for the heavy soldiers. The heavies are meant to train extensively with their machete, and while their dance of death might not be as elegant as the light soldiers, it is no less effective as they hack off limbs and cut through armor like it's a tin can. Moving on to the armor, the heavies are obviously equipped with heavier metal-plated armor in comparison to their lighter leather counterparts. However, they aren't equipped with the heaviest and best armor in the game, so you will always have to remember that there are some enemies who will outclass their protection. While heavies may sacrifice some speed and mobility, speed is still at the core of the Horde, and they do not abandon this principle entirely. It is why it is important to use the spring bat to lighten up more armored opponents. We'll start at the bottom once again when it comes to the armor. The heavies are equipped with armor-plated long boots. These long boots are excellent as they provide additional armor while only giving a minor speed decrease without affecting other stats. Moving up, they have armored drifter pants. They are very similar to the long boots in their stats and attributes, and they were chosen for the same reason. The only thing we have to remind ourselves when it comes to this armor piece is that it takes chainmail to craft, which in my opinion is rather annoying to make. Nothing else of note, so let's move on to the next piece. The next piece is actually an old piece. It is the same leather turtleneck that is used by the light troopers, and it will be used by the heavies as well. We will see the chainmail variant later, but in the meantime we will stick with the leather, and this is for two reasons. One, the chainmail in my opinion would add too many debuffs for what I am trying to do with these heavies, and the second is the much larger cost in time and resources to produce them. Thus, we will stick with leather for now. For their chest armor, the heavies don the one piece which gives them their distinctive look. That is the plate jacket. The plate jacket is one of the best all-around armor pieces in Kenshi, and for our heavies, it will get the job done with ease. Most of the heavies' armor will crater your crossbow stats. The plate armor only gives you a 0.8 reduction. There is a black version of the plate jacket which is actually slightly better than the white version, but I only went with the white one as I think it is much more visually striking in my mind. The last piece of armor is the beautiful iron hat, giving our soldiers a nice mirror in between one another. The iron hat is simply a more sturdy version of the rattan hat, making it a solid choice for our heavies. In addition, they get that +4 perception for their crossbow boost as well. As you can see, while our heavies are certainly heavier than their light counterparts, they do not have the heaviest armor in Kenshi. They do, however, have more than enough to go toe-to-toe with the vast majority of enemies in the game. And when they do need to crack open that heavier armor, they have the tools for the job. So that covers our two basic main classes for the Horde. But that is not all, as there are two additional elite classes that soldiers who demonstrate exemplary skills in their detachments will get the chance for promotion into one of these classes. But before I get there, I want to take a brief intermission while we talk about those who keep the wheels of the Horde running, the non-combatants. Not all members of the Horde will march with the Khan in glorious conquest. However, their contributions are no less necessary and vital to the war effort. The non-combatants are the members of the Horde who work the farms, mines, furnaces, smiths, stoves, and everything else that produces the materials the Horde needs to expand its influence. These members almost never venture outside the protection of the Golden City and toil endlessly at their assigned tasks. When it comes to gear, non-combatants support a bright white gi and a straw hat. The hat is really for aesthetics, just to keep everyone with a uniform look. The gi itself is also chosen for its aesthetic purposes because it makes it easy to pick out non-combatants from the crowd. It also gives them a very slight martial arts boost. While less than double digits, it's probably not enough to turn a fight, but in Kenshi, every little bit counts. And that's really it for our non-combatants, so let's move on to our two elite classes. The first is the Golden Eagles. The Golden Eagles represent the pinnacle of the Horde's marksmen. They are the least numerous and are rarely ever formed up into full Arbons. Usually a light Arbon has 2 or 3 Eagles embedded for support. The Eagles run the fastest and shoot the farthest. They are the best scouts and assassins the Horde has to offer. Usually on the battlefield, Eagles are given orders to find high-value targets and pick them off. During sieges, these troops will also infiltrate into the city and take up positions on high watchtowers, walls, raining down pinpoint precision death on those below. But let's look at the weapon, which really makes the Eagle. When it comes to their melee weapon, it does not change. They carry their faithful katana with them into the next role. However, they are issued an Eagle Cross crossbow, which they get their name from. This massive and intricate crossbow takes time and skill to create. That's why so few are created. In addition, they need a special long bolt ammo type to fire, which makes supplying the Eagles a very difficult logistical task. However, in the hands of a skilled soldier, this crossbow can mow down enemies like there's no tomorrow. A well-placed group of Eagles can hold out against a massive enemy force several times their number, indefinitely with enough ammo. When it comes to their armor though, things are slightly different. Dropping anything which hinders their speed and mobility, the Eagles must be able to fly over the continent. Keeping all their previous armors, the Eagles lose the rattan hat in favor of a straw one for the added perception. They also lose their boots in favor of sandals to give them a little bit of an extra athletics and speed boost. But the main piece of their armor is the assassin rags, which replace the ninja rags, which while looking cool, this armor has the added benefit of a 1.2 dex modifier over the 1.1 of the ninja rags. This extra stat boost allows the best of the best to become absolute demons in melee combat, making them more than capable of dealing with any foe that can manage to approach them. The final class in the Khan's army are the hulking Immortals. This class makes up the Khan's elite bodyguard, and just like the Khan himself, are often the first into battle. The heavy shock troops of the Horde, the Immortals lead the way in any siege or major battle. Their thick armor has been borrowed from the Horde's first and greatest ally, the Crab Raiders, and it allows them to absorb any damage the enemy can muster. This armor tanks crossbow bolts, heavy weapons, and even harpoons, which only have a hope in cracking this armor in the most favorable of circumstances. In addition, the leather shirts are now officially replaced with chainmail ones, giving the Immortals the absolute best protection that Kenshi has to offer. Obviously, this means that only the absolute strongest members of the Horde can ever dream to this elite group, as the strength required just to wear the armor alone is beyond the reach of most mortal men. This means that Sheks are the most liable race to ascend to their ranks, but not exclusively, as with the exception of Hiver Prince and Drones, all races can be found among the ranks of the Immortals. All you need is to be strong, and very strong, because we haven't even covered their weapon of choice yet. Abandoning ranged combat entirely, the Immortals wield massive planks in place of their previous crossbows, allowing them to really put the shock into Shock Trooper. These tanks thunder into battle swinging their planks, cutting down scores of opponents with a single sweep. While they do still hold on to their old machetes, they are only used in special circumstances, where the plank would be less than ideal, such as fighting indoors. With all that added up, you have a set of armor that completely destroys a character's dexterity. But that doesn't matter, because the Immortal is all in on strength and defense. Why would you need to dodge incoming attacks when they do 0 damage? And your primary method of attack is just basically a jet propeller blade with a stick attached to it. Because of their slow nature, Immortals are almost rarely called into battle, finding themselves stationed as garrison commanders and provincial generals, though any Immortal's dream is to be in the Khan's personal bodyguard. Only the best of the best can get into the Khan's personal guard. His hand-picked warriors, in many cases, are the Khan's first and last line of defense. But they are also his most trusted advisors and companions. When the Immortals do come together in large numbers, it is almost certainly because a city's gate needs to be broken. Screaming and jeering and taunting the enemy, the Immortals make an incredible spectacle, tanking up as much of the enemy's damage and attention as possible, while the other members of the Horde break into the city and begin to take it block by block. Now that we have all the classes of the Horde lined up, I want to finish with a discussion on how to use them to their greatest extent. First off, and I should have mentioned this earlier because I mentioned that I group my soldiers into units called Arbons, and Arbons are groups of 10 soldiers, and there's really no reason for this number other than a reference to the Mongol army themselves, who use a decimal system to organize their army, the smallest unit being a unit of 10 called an Arbon. So I just stole the name. What is important though is that Arbons are not to be intermixed between heavy and light types. A group of light soldiers should always stay in a unit with other light soldiers. There are a couple reasons for this, but the main one is for control purposes. In battle, the Immortals should always be in front, followed by the heavies, and then the lights, and then the eagles. Recall in Kenshi that friendly fire exists, and much of this organization is to minimize its effect on a range-focused army. Over time, your Arbons will improve their shooting stats, and friendly fire becomes less and less likely, but it still can happen. And when it does, you don't want to lose a valuable soldier because of it. Because of their armor, the Immortals don't need to worry about friendly fire because it barely bothers them. The heavies, on the other hand, have enough armor to tank a ranger bolt to the head, but not so much the other way around. If you put lights in front of your heavies, you can have a scenario where one of your soldiers gets shot by a stray string bat bolt and takes it to the face. And this obviously sucks, so avoid it. It is much easier to avoid this when the heavy and light Arbons are controlled separately. With that in mind, when fighting together, it's best to line up in a checkered formation with the heavies in front and the lights behind. In addition, make sure to turn on hold your ground when firing. If you don't, your soldiers will engage at will and will almost certainly run in front of each other, leading to a very unpleasant time for everyone. Another thing I want to mention is always remember to kite when you have the speed advantage, which should be basically always if you're doing it right. With kiting, Arbons can overcome massive patrols many times their number. In general, when you can't outfight the enemy, you can outrun and outshoot them. In the last section of this video, I want to mention sieges, because obviously they are important to the Horde in its ever-expanding war of conquest. You always want to lead with your Immortals. They will get the attention of all the best soldiers in the city and all the turrets defending it. Then you want to line up your ranged troops and pour fire on anyone who is attacking the Immortals and anyone who is manning a turret. Once their ranks are thinned, I then like to start moving in some of the best ranged troops to take key vantage points in the city and begin firing down at enemies. From there, it's usually a simple process of cleaning out the remaining troops until you find the city's leader's house, and then prying that son of a bitch out of his or her hidey hole, and then feeding them to beak things, because that's the best way to, execute people in the game, because you can't just kill them for some reason when they're on the ground. Anyway, after that, the city is now yours, if you're using the Conquer the World mod, which for our playthrough we are. Anyway, that wraps up our video here and our brief look at the Horde. I hope you guys got some insight into the Khan's army and how it functions in battle. If there's one takeaway I have after creating and designing his faction, it is that ranged units are extremely powerful in Kenshi, and even more so when they're clustered together to focus fire. And if they have the speed to move around and kite their opponents, then they can become effectively invincible. Yes, there is friendly fire, but with some careful positioning, it can easily be avoided. And once your troops stop being total rookies with a crossbow, instances of friendly fire will diminish rapidly. With these tactics, you can take down any opponent and hold the territory you take. Ranged combat is even more effective in defensive combat, as you can cut down wave after wave of attacking raiders. And with that, we can end our recap on the Horde and its tactics. I hope you'll join us in the next video, where we pick up Temujin's war with the Holy Nation and the subjugation of the people of Okran. This has been the Comrade, signing off for now, and you guys take care.